My name is Akosia Adoma, and I'm so excited to be back on your screens. You're welcome to Akwaaba Podcast. Today we have with us a very, very, very happening gentleman. If I say happening, you know that it is happening, right? So I'm not going to say so much because you know how we do it here. We allow our guests to introduce themselves, and then we kick it from there. So you're very much welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
So you tell us your name and you let us know a little bit, not a little bit. Tell us everything about yourself.
Everything?
Yes.
You have 46 years to sit here?
Yes.
Everything is 46 years?
Yes, we have 46 years to sit here.
So my name is Bill Tubman. I am a award-winning storyteller, author, and mental health counselor. I am from Liberia. I was raised and educated in the United States of America.
Which part of the States?
In Maryland, in
Okay.
Gaithersburg, Maryland.
All right.
I moved to the continent of Africa in 2008. I've lived in Liberia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Rwanda, Ivory Coast again, and now Ghana again.
Wait, 2008. So how many years now?
So almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
What kept you here? Why didn't you go back
It's
to Maryland?
home. It's home. I see myself reflected in all of the people I'm really dedicated into. I'm really dedicated to enriching and cultivating young creatives and entrepreneurs, and that's where my work is really based in, bringing a new aspect to storytelling, whether it be within communications, public speaking, mental health advocating or counseling and coaching. Those are my areas of trying to help young people discover where it is that they want to go. Earlier today, a friend and I were speaking about how many hats we in Africa use. We're the continent of jack of all trades.
Yeah.
And a jack of all trades is better than a master of none. So my work is, my framework of how I do my work is based in a framework that I created called Se Bodio.
Okay.
And Se Bodio is developed from the Japanese ikigai, which ikigai is doing what you love,
Okay.
doing what you're good at, what impacts the world, and what will make you money.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a journey when you have so many things that you want to do and how to connect that. And through mental health counseling and coaching around the Se Bodio framework, I try to help people reach there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So can you spell it for us?
Se, okay. So Se is S-E-H, and that means light force or purpose in the Liberian dialect of Vai.
Okay.
And then Bodio is B-O-D-I-O, and that is high priest or spiritual leader in the Liberian language of Gribble. And the interesting thing is that both languages are on the opposite, the places where they speak both languages are on the opposite ends of Liberia, but they work well together. So that's the connection for the framework, is that even though you have so many things that you may be doing, there can be a balance that's found to help sustain yourself and help you create and find avenues for opportunities to express yourself in the way that God intended you to be.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So moving from there, how long have you been in Ghana?
So the first time I was in Ghana was 2014 until 2017.
Okay, that's 3 years.
Yeah, 3.5, let's say.
All right.
And then since this time, I've been here since July.
Since July.
Yeah.
That's almost a year.
Close to a year. Let's round it off to a year. No problem with that.
And what do you love so much about Ghana that's making you stay here?
Well, I think that Ghana is on its way to like a cultural and artistic renaissance. And I love to be here when things like that are happening, because there's going to be so many more innovations and growth in terms of technology. And I want to be here to help people find their way through that and navigating that, especially young people.
That's amazing. So you were saying that you've been to Rwanda,
Yeah.
You've been in Liberia,
Yeah.
You've been in
Côte
Ghana,
d'Ivoire.
Côte d'Ivoire,
Yeah.
and Those 4 countries
in America, but we're
in
not. But that's
America.
out of our conversation.
Yes,
We're talking about Africa.
about Africa.
Yeah.
So what are some of the differences in culture and the differences in culture and the similarities in culture you see here in Ghana and all these other African
Well,
countries?
for Liberia, that's my country of origin and where I am born. However, I feel that I love Liberia, but our connection to what is traditional is really, kind of how would I say, filtered out because we are our whole principle is based on the American. Our
Okay.
whole founding is based on the American principles of democracy,
Yes,
which
yes,
it is what it is.
yes.
While everybody else was being colonized in a different kind of way, our colonization is really built in our foundation of who we are.
Yeah.
So it's very rare you will hear a Liberian person speaking a dialect to one another, like a traditional language to one
Yeah.
another. We speak our form of pidgin is called Kolokwa.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But I love our resilience. As you know, we've come from a civil war, and even now we're still feeling the effects of that. And when you're stressed and frustrated, it doesn't give space to creativity and a cultural renaissance. And so we're dealing with that. I see a lot of, hope and changes, and I think that it will get there. So that's Liberia. I love Liberian food. The reason why you don't hear about Liberian jollof rice is because there's just no comparison. Liberian jollof rice, yeah.
Seriously.
So, but we'll talk about that in another episode.
Really? Okay.
Cote d'Ivoire. Ivorians are they're very into the arts. They're very into I think that they're a bit further ahead than anyone that I know, any country that I've lived in regards to like the arts. Mental health is still something that they're trying to navigate to see where their place is in it, as all us West Africans. And then there's Ghana. Let's go to Rwanda first. Rwanda, they have there's still like an underlying dealing of what happened in 1994 with the genocide against the Tutsis. But their security apparatus actually keeps their laws in place because there's strict consequences for any wrongdoing. But they are really, really focusing now on mental health and art as it pertains to mental health. So there was a lot of mental health stuff going there. And in Ghana, I see it coming out, burgeoning, and art is such a big deal here. And I see a lot of young people doing very interesting things.
Yeah.
And I love that so much about Ghana. And I love Ghanaian food.
Which one? Which is your favorite?
I love banku and tilapia is my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, and then palm soup is my next favorite.
Palm nut soup.
Yeah,
All
palm
right,
nut
that's
soup.
fine. So banku with pepper. I find it's like rare people liking banku with pepper because I feel like it's very tough
I love
to
it.
really.
Love it.
How about Ghana
Tilapia.
jollof?
Yeah,
It's okay.
It's,
Can we compare to
like I
Liberia?
said, I would choose Ghana jollof before I choose Nigeria.
Jollof.
Yeah.
How about okay? Now the battle is between Liberian jollof and Ghana jollof.
Oh, that one there is, I told you there's no comparison. We're out of the game because we can't compare. We don't want to do that to you people.
Okay.
We don't want
That's
to
fine.
enter the. We
I
don't want
can't
to
say
enter the.
much. I can't say much because I've not tried it.
I will make sure you try it.
Thank you very much, guys. So we'll hold you to your
You
word.
hear it. You
All
hear
right.
it first. We're going to have the jollof war.
All right, beautiful. You describe yourself as a storyteller and a
Right.
writer,
Uh-huh.
right? So I'm like, what's the difference between a writer and a storyteller?
So, I'm happy that you've said that. So, oftentimes you'll hear a lot of people who are writers. There's a lot of pressure on them to, you're such a great writer. Why don't you publish? And there's so many different avenues in regards to writing. You can be a copywriter where you're doing communication copy or creative copy for a company or a brand or individual. You can be a technical writer for a company. You can do so many different forms of writing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be based in storytelling.
Okay.
You know, now every single one of us has a story to tell, whether it be a brand, whether it be your grandmother, whether it be even the little kid that is only a year old. There's a story behind how that person or that company or that individual got to the place that it is. Um, I'll tell you a story.
All right.
So, a little girl in Augusta, Georgia, sometime in the 1800s, traveled with her family to Liberia, right? At the same time, there was a gentleman in Liberia, right? And sometime in the future, the little girl married another man and he died, and she married the second husband. Many years after that, they had a son, and that son became the president of Liberia. And without that son, I would not be sitting here with you because he's my grandfather.
Beautiful.
You see the thing? So like so many seemingly unconnected, you know, and that's why when I say that everyone has a purpose, I really mean it, because even when you see someone who may be walking in the street and in their mind, I'm so insignificant and my life means nothing. We don't know who's coming after them, who their
who's
children are
coming
going.
out of you.
Yeah, who their
Yeah.
children are going to be. So there's a story behind every single thing. So a storyteller and a writer, a writer doesn't have to be a storyteller, and a storyteller doesn't have to be a writer. But there's a way for them to come together and be both, you know. But storytellers are more focused on the history of how things happen. Storytellers are more connected to the story of how things happen and how things unfold. And writers can be storytellers, but they don't have to be.
Okay, that's beautiful. And I mean, when I got to learn so much about you, right? You boldly speak about how storytelling can be so powerful, right? What's the one story that has really impacted your life, or the one story that you have written that has impacted the life of someone else?
So I would say that two things. So in December, I lost my grandmother. And
Sorry.
oh, thank you. So my grandmother grew up in the 40s. She was born in 37, and she grew up in the 40s. And the way that she raised her children was reflective of how she was raised. You know, very, you know, strict. But as time went on, she softened up, and she softened because she was able to gain a different perspective. And I feel like her definition of kindness and a spiritual walk really reflected the actual teachings of Jesus Christ, which was, you know, don't judge others, worry about your own salvation, and be an example before you start to judge other people. Be kind. And her saying was, before I spoil my heart with hatred, I willingly forgive. And so
That's
her,
a phrase that she used to say. That's very powerful.
she always said it. And this is in her story of, you know, coming from the rural area of Maryland County in Liberia to moving to Monrovia, and then spending most of our time from her 50s until her 80s in America. You know, I just really love her story. And then because of her, my mother, whose story I love as well, who's very instrumental in knowing that everyone's story and everyone's talent and gifts are different. You know, sometimes we get very caught up in the successes of other, and comparison is like the theft of joy, right? And so what I'm strong in, what my sister is strong in, what my brother is strong in, is valued, you know. And that's the kind of parent my mother was when we were growing up. That oh, you're into the arts, great, I'm gonna go to your art. Oh, you're into basketball, great. You're into academics, great. You know, so that is those are the stories. But when I think of like a actual story that I can tell you is that I was diagnosed with systemic lupus when I was 16 or 17, and I was told that I would not live past 25.
That is rare
Yeah,
for.
yeah. So
I know it's a very predominantly feminine
yeah, it's a female. It's
condition.
known to be a female disease, right? But yeah, that's what happened. And so I'm a cancer survivor. I am and how I was able to really make it to this age is to really focus my attention on others and understanding that, don't get me wrong, I do have my why me moments, but generally my outlook is a positive one. And that's why I write my book, actually. Shameless plug, Proverbial Flowers, a book of gratitude, inspiration and gratitude, is coming out on April 22nd. So go
Yeah.
and get it.
Yes.
Proverbial Flowers by Bill Tubman. Go and get it.
Where can I get it before we move on to something else?
It's gonna be available for pre-order on March 18th,
Okay.
and I'll send you the link so that you can post it. I know you will, so I don't.
Definitely.
So basically, the book is a love letter to those who have touched my life, God, my parents, strangers, and all the rest. The book is dedicated to strangers, my family, everyone who has actually been a part of my life. And it's also a mental health tool, because within the book, there's worksheets, there's affirmations, there's, energy management exercises to help you through limiting beliefs and all of those things. So that's where my passion is through that, helping you create your story and be able to share it to impact the lives of others. And that's how I've arrived here.
This is beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, when I spoke with you, you were like, I spoke with you before here, and you were like, God has a reason for us
Right.
crossing our path. And like, when you're sharing your experience of like the conditions, that I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God, that's very interesting, because I've had like quite a similar journey. So like when you were speaking, I couldn't help but tear up. That's amazing.
That's what I was wondering why you were. I thought I didn't realize it was tears.
Anyway, that's amazing. That's amazing. So that's like the
That
power
is
of
so
storytelling,
nice.
guys.
You
Power of
see?
storytelling.
Oh wow!
Anyway.
I see her over here crying. I thought she had something in her eye. I didn't realize.
Anyway, so yeah, we'll move very fast from here before somebody starts wailing, right? So how do you see the storytelling, like modern storytelling in Ghana or in Africa, evolving?
It's beautiful. I mean, I see storytelling all the time. Like it's within everything that we see. Even now, we see Ghana actually opened its door to a new kind of story when you're inviting the Black Americans back home. That's another story that you're creating, another opportunity for storytelling. I've met several people here, and their stories of leaving America and the right-wing situation that's happening there, and all of these dystopian-looking things, to come home to Africa, and to acknowledge that this is a place in which they were taken from, or their ancestors were taken from, is really a beautiful story for the generations to come. Because after 2 or 3 generations, who's going to remember that they were from America? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's so many stories developing. There's a word called sonder, and sonder is created by this guy who goes around creating new words. Anyway, I forgot his name. So basically, it means everybody who's a passerby in your life is not just an extra. Even the man that you see at the corner of your eye when you're eating in a diner, He has his complex reality, his own stories, his own loves, his own desires, you know. And so we should all recognize that we're not the center of the universe. And once we get there, we'll start to value um, other people's stories. So I really think that Ghana is in a place where storytelling is very important. I see it within the art. I see it within the food. You know, there's so many chefs coming out. I see there's so many people doing so many amazing things in terms of entrepreneurship and social impactive things. So yeah, I feel like we're on the right track here in Ghana.
Awesome. What's one of the most difficult story you've ever told? And why was it so hard for you to tell that story?
Um, oh, so okay, so you're gonna make me cry. I think the most difficult story, I don't know if I've ever, one of the most difficult situations and stories that I had to really deal with is when we had the civil unrest in Liberia. In order for the warlords and those who were fighting to put down their arms, they were given immunity. And so I in my family, because like I mentioned before, my family was, I had a lot of political people within my family. Um, and even aside from that, some just family members, I've had quite a few murders in my family because of that war. And to be able to to experience the fact that you go out to eat and see a person who has murdered your family member and because of immunity, they're not going to get any justice. Those were some of the hardest things. And then one of the hardest situations that I've been with in terms of that was when I was growing up before we left Liberia. So I went back to Liberia in 1985 to 1990.
Okay.
So I went from 80 to 85, and from 85 to 90, we went back to so we could get you are actually Liberian mentality.
Yeah.
And while I was there, my cousin Hilaria, now she was like my sister. You know, we were always together. She lived with my grandmother, so we saw each other, you know, at least almost every day.
Every day.
And so when we were leaving the States in 90, her father decided that she would go and live with them. And unfortunately, she was 12 and they were all murdered. And you know, when you're growing up and you see, and someone says, oh, someone died in Liberia, but you don't have any hope of going to Liberia anytime soon, you could kind of play in your mind, oh, there's a lie, the person is on vacation. And when I get back to Liberia one day, she'll be there. These people don't know what they're talking about. You know, maybe that was kind of like the way that I coped with that. And of course, when I got back to Liberia, she sure wasn't there because she had indeed been murdered. And one day I was sitting at a restaurant, and I promise you, I have never seen the man's face before. But when I looked at this particular man, I said, I think this is the guy that killed this lady. And I asked my cousin, who is that guy? He said, oh yeah, that's the guy that killed our cousin. And I was like, I said, you know, I've never seen this man's face before, but I just knew it was him. It was the weirdest thing. And he was like, my cousin was like, come on, let's go. So we left and they're all, and that's just the norm for a lot of people. You know, people are walking around free as a bird. So those kind of stories are very difficult for me, I think. And I'm sure challenge from many Liberians or anyone who has gone through something like that.
Personally, how did you deal with this? How did you overcome these feelings?
No, you don't overcome them. You don't overcome trauma. I believe that two things can be within us at the same time. Ease was never promised to us. We know that just by living, we'll go through challenges, whether it be murder, whether it be poverty. You know, I'm incredibly blessed because my life is full of love. You know, the kind of relationship that I have with my mother and my siblings and my children are not a lot of people have that. I feel that I'm welcomed most places that I go. I have lights, shelter, and food every day. But at the same time, I'm grieving for my grandmother. I'm grieving for my aunt and my cousins and friends who have died. And those people's, you have to understand that. Oh, and I don't think you have to understand, but you will understand as a human being that the greatest price of love is loss. You know, we will all lose our loved ones, and our loved ones will eventually lose us. So, but it doesn't mean that we stop loving because we want to be protected, because there's nothing gonna protect us from tragedy and adversity. But it's the resilience and the acceptance that joy and gratitude go hand in hand with those things, and that's how we overcome them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talking to me now,
Yeah.
it looks like you've really built a very strong well within you that helps you to deal with all these ups and downs of lives, right? But I mean, in Africa, you were talking earlier, and you were like, you are a mental health wellness advocate, right? In
And
Africa,
counselor, yeah.
and counselor, yes.
Yeah.
In Africa, or let me speak for Ghana, right? Because I'm here in Ghana. Mental health is not something that is really spoken about. It's
Right.
like something happens and you figure it out,
Right,
right?
right.
Something happens and you should just deal with it, right? What has been some of the challenges being a mental health counselor in these parts of the world?
So right now, I'm just starting in Ghana. You know, I'm setting up, doing all the, the administrative stuff to be able to do that. But um, even just coping is a testament to the resilience of Ghanaian people. To say, oh, I didn't have any money for Kenke today. Oh, well,
Yeah.
we just got to keep it moving, is also a way of dealing with it. So the underlying foundation of coping and healing and resilience is there. Is just the structure of it's just a structure of finding a person to talk to. And also affordability is a big thing.
Yeah.
As much as I want to help, like I said, I have those lights and that shelter, and I still need to keep them over me. So I need to find a way to balance my need to help as well as the need to sustain myself. And that's why I've kind of set it up in a way where anyone can work with me. I don't think that it's really I don't really think it's the cultural idea of, oh, we don't care about mental health. It's just a bit difficult to want to eat and be thinking about mental health. When you go to the American school, for example, and you ask the children, okay, tell me about your mental health. So what are some of the things that are bothering you? They're going to say, my father travels to Europe all the time. I don't get to see him. And my mom didn't give me the PlayStation. All of those things are valid. Even if I'm saying it in
Yeah.
this way, it's valid.
It's
I'm just giving you
valid,
an example.
yes.
You probably ask my kids growing up, they would be saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Ask me growing up, because that was my experience. Like I didn't really have much to complain about other than my health.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, my health, I wish I could be, But if you go down the street to a local school, there are students and you ask them, what is your fear and the things that you're going through about your mental health? They're going to tell you, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my tuition next semester.
Yeah.
They ain't going to be thinking about no PlayStation, or daddy is not home. Who cares if daddy's not home as long as he's paying my tuition?
Yeah.
Because I got to get out of this neighborhood and do big things, and so that's the crux that we're in. That's the problem that we're in. We have to figure out a way to switch people's minds and let them know that, again, two things can exist in the same place. You can worry about, I don't really have a good relationship with my dad. I really don't understand why he's always so angry, And that's another thing is generational trauma is passed down.
Yeah.
A lot of times what I've seen in Liberia, for example, is that, we have people, our youth, like I went to an event one day, and the person who stood up for the youth had to have been over 35, you know, because in Africa we stay with our families normally until we get married and move out.
Yeah.
Whereas in America in the West, when you're 18, you go to college and you never come back. You know, there are things that are set up there. Maybe not so much for generational wealth in some underserved communities in the West, but generally, even poverty looks different in the West than it does in Africa.
Really?
Oh, definitely. Poverty looks completely different. There's still services for people who are impoverished in the West, as opposed to here. I mean, right now it's kind of funny because things are about looks like they're changing, but you know, generally in the past there were different services for people. So yeah, so that's basically what I think is that to close that is that I think that we just need to find a balance and give people this space to be able to talk about things. And one of those things is it starts at home and it also starts in the school. So if you give training to people with teachers and provide counseling at school, I think it opens up the conversation for young people. And young people, what happens to young people eventually? Children become adults.
Yeah.
So when you start young and let them know that it's okay to talk, when dad comes home from a hard day at work, soon as he enters the house, everybody is running away because they don't even want to hear his trouble. You know, because if you're in his way, he's going to yell at you. And it's because, again, generational trauma. Him and his father didn't have a, oh, come son, I love you kind of relationship.
That's so weird for him.
Yeah, like what? Yeah. So like in Rwanda, when mental health was coming along, you know, those people had fought, you know, they had seen their people, 1 million people get killed within 100 days. And so when their children are talking about trauma, they're like, and mental health, they're like, what happened to you? Nothing happened to you. You have Instagram, we send you to America and you're talking about mental health. But the way that we even interact with our children is traumatic to them because they're like, yo, you know, that happened a long time ago. Like, why are you, you know, let us be more joyful. Let us be able to speak with one another. It's not always just, you know, we have to listen. One of the sayings that I like to say is, young people should sit at the feet of their elders and elders should listen to the youth. Because in order for us to move forward, there has to be a come together between the two. Tell me of your lived experiences and I'll tell you about my innovation of what is happening now. And that's the only way that the future will be bright, especially here in Africa. We have to let go of the elder is always right situation.
Is that something we can do? That's something that can be achieved?
Yes. You and I are having a conversation. I'm much older than you. And many years before, we couldn't have a conversation like this. Who I will come and talk to? I'll be looking for a minister to talk to. You get me? You get me? Yeah. So things are happening. You know, you are already, as a young person, creating a platform for elders to come and talk to you.
Yes.
Aren't you listening to me? Aren't your viewers listening to me?
I am.
Yeah. You see? So that's it. I spoke. I told you my experience. It brought you some emotion. You know, we found that there's common ground between us. So there it is.
Awesome. So what's that very, like, moving across Africa, right? Moving in Ghana, what's the very commonest, most common?
The most common.
What's the most common?
I think the most common thing
mental wellness issues that you see arising.
I think the most concerning thing for everyone is what's going to happen to me in the future. You know, how am I going to chase my dreams? You know, how bold and like this is why I really admire people who are filming who are making their living in the arts because you know, many years ago in Ghana and Liberia and anywhere in the West Africa, everybody wanted to be an accountant.
Yeah.
You know, but everyone cannot be an accountant. And even some of those people didn't want to be accountants. They just thought that's what they should do.
That's what they should do. I'll give you a classic example,
Give me
right?
one.
I mean, growing up, I always said, I just knew I didn't want to be a doctor. right? I just knew it's like everybody was like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse. I just knew I wasn't going to work in a hospital. But I didn't know what I wanted to be. But the next thing I would hear people say is like lawyer. I was like, ugh, no. And the next thing was accountant. So I was like, okay, let me pick the accountant. But
Wow.
deep within me, I
You
knew I
knew.
didn't want to be an accountant,
Right.
but I didn't know what I wanted to be because I hadn't seen so much, right?
Right.
I hadn't seen all the things that I could be.
Right.
So it took me so long, and it would give me this feeling of on seriousness. I don't know. I'm not getting the right word, but
No, that's
I just
fine.
knew I just knew I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't
So
want to look
confusion, I
like
guess,
I was I
you
was
were
like I
unclear.
was I was unserious because other people were saying what they wanted to be,
I don't know if
and
you're
I didn't want
unserious.
to
I think
say.
you're uncertain,
But I
which is
didn't know what,
fine.
and I really felt
Yeah.
bad because then my elders, like my mom or an older sibling, would
Hmm.
ask me, "What do you want to be?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And like the kind of face they give you, or the kind of response they give you, like
I'm like,
other
what's
people
wrong
are
with you?
saying, yeah,
You're
other people
18
are
years.
saying this,
You're
and you don't know.
18 years old and you
Yes,
don't know what you want to do.
yes,
No,
yes,
and
yes, yes, yes.
trust me. The thing is, what people fail to realize is that your parents are there and we're telling you, oh, grow up. But within our minds, we're the same people that we've always been. The only thing that's changed is the responsibilities that have been added.
That's true.
I think of the things that I thought about when I was 15. I still think some of those things. I know that I have to do it differently because I'm a 46-year-old
Yeah.
man. But
Really?
oh yeah, black don't crack. You don't know.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like no one should expect an 18-year-old to even a 25-year-old to know what it is that they're going to do.
Yeah.
You know.
This
Here
is me
we
stepping out
yeah,
and
here we
someone
are
is
at
calling
40.
me.
Yeah. Here
Yeah.
we are at 46-year-old. We're still getting ready to change it up and find something else to do. It keeps on transforming because you're evolving as a person. If
Yeah.
you're evolving as a person, then there you have it.
I mean, I step out and someone is calling me auntie, and I'm like, me?
Ah!
You're calling me auntie. I'm supposed to know what to do.
It's funny you say that because in Liberia we have a word called papi, and I hear my children talking about the papi. I'm like, what who they're talking about? I said, who are you talking about here? They're like, you. I'm like, oh man, I'm already the papi,
Yeah.
eh?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What is that one advice, your go-to advice for people that are seeking for clarity in like one aspect of their life, whether mentally or in their occupation or what,
You
etc.?
are an expert in yourself, and everything you need is right there within you. That
That
is,
is an amazing advice,
yeah.
actually. That is an amazing advice. Okay. And what brought you to this realization? Was it
Huh?
something you experienced, or was it an advice passed down from someone to you?
Yeah, I mean, my the lady who taught me to be a mental health counselor, Kelly Johnson. Kelly Johnson. Hello,
Yeah,
Kelly.
shout out to you,
Yeah,
Kelly.
shout out Kelly. Always says that in her in her sessions. And interestingly enough, I went to Kelly uh, for a session for actually mental health therapy. And while we're in the session, she's like, I really think that you would actually be a good counselor, which was a good thing because I had already done some similar things to that. I was the last job that I had in America was actually a patient representative, patient, what was it called? Patient advocate in at a hospital where I would deal with people who had just lost their family members. The doctor would be like, "Oh, dad died," and he would run away, and I would have to sit there with the person and after that, years after that, people would send me messages. Oh, I met you in 2007 and you helped us. And I've always wanted to be there. So when I went to Rwanda, I met this lady. Someone referred me to her. I went there for therapy, and I only had one therapy session with her. And then I went into her class to become a therapist, a
Wow.
counselor for mental health. So, I believe there's a spiritual principle that says we all chose the path that we're on with God, right? We're on with God. And along that path, we will meet people who will guide us and who will guide. It's called a sacred contract, which my my coach and who I and mentor, Elma Shaw, she really put that within me, is that my purpose is to help others through my writing, because sometimes I will write something and there was a situation where a woman reached out to my mom and said, something strange happened. I was going to commit suicide today. And when I woke up and I went to Facebook, I saw that your son had written, you're going to be okay. You are going to be, I don't know why I wrote it that way, but and that's how she decided that she wasn't going to, yeah.
Wow.
So you are, some of the people that you have contracts with spiritually are people that you'll never meet. So that's why when God is telling you, or the universe or whatever it is that guides you in your heart is telling you to do something creative, you have to do it, because it's not for you. It's for those people who are waiting to hear what you have to say or express.
Awesome. And then you're into communications, creative strategy, and mental wellness. How does these different fields intersect for you?
Oh, because it's all storytelling. And my storytelling is all about guiding and helping others, to navigate through difficult times. I'll give you one last story. And this story is, I ordered an Uber. And when I see the name on the Uber, I'll text the person by name. And the man had sent me a text and he said, "Hi, I'm on the way." I said, "Okay, George, drive safely." It's just something that I did. I always do. So he came, he picked my mom and I up, and we were walking and we're going. So at the under bridge where those guys are like fixing the road and they ask you for money.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have money, and maybe even if I had the money, I wouldn't have given it to them. But what I do is, even if I can't do anything for you, I will acknowledge you. And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have anything." And the driver looked at me, he was like, "Are you a missionary?" And I said, "No, I'm not." "Why are you asking?" I thought it was funny that he asked me. He said, "Because you've been preaching and ministering since," he said, "in my whole time that I've been driving Uber, no one has ever told me to drive safely." And I got so emotional, just like how you got emotional today. I almost got emotional. I'm like, just from saying, drive safely, the man thinks I'm a pastor or a missionary. So kindness is the real ministry of God. Kindness, because kindness is the true representation of love within everything that we do. Love is not something you say. Being a follower of God is not something you say. You can sit and you can speak in tongues all you want, but if you don't live the actual message of Jesus Christ or whoever it is, because they're all the same when you come down to it, is love one another. Because if you can't love one another, then you can't really love God.
Okay. And we're going to go into your creative strategy
The Se
aspect
Bodio.
of you, right? What does it mean to be a creative strategist? Do you help people to creatively think, or do you help people execute
I
their
wouldn't
creative
like
stuff?
to say that I'm a creative strategist. I would prefer that we use the word, I journey with people through their creativity.
Okay.
Because like I said before, you're an expert on yourself. Perhaps you are having some blocks that you can't figure out why you can't write what it is that you're writing. Maybe you even don't know how to put what you want to say on paper. There's people who I work with as a ghostwriter. Yeah, they tell me their idea and I write for them. And I can be a book coach. I can be an accountability coach. So you have a project that you want to do, right? And this project is giving you a hard time because your mind gets. So I'll tell you, let me be your accountability, and we'll sit there, and I'll make sure that you write. And so that's so we can create a strategy together, based upon what you want, what you believe, what you desire the outcome to be. But I can't do it alone. It's always a collaboration.
Okay.
So I'm a creative collaborator. There you go.
And
Creative collaborator.
how how did you find out that I'm actually good at writing? Is this something that someone told you, or you just knew deep
Yes,
within you that
someone told
um
me, several people told me, but who stands out is my great aunt, Hannah Bush. She's passed away now. Uh, and my aunt Hannah, when I was very young, I, this is a beautiful story to me because it really makes me emotional because when I think about it, I realize how you have to be really kind to children
yeah,
because they really grow up.
that's true.
Yeah, and they grow up and they remember these things.
That's true.
You want to change the narrative, but they'll never forget how you were to them. And my aunt Hannah, my auntie Ellen, who I called small auntie or fall auntie, all of those people were really instrumental in the confidence that I have in my talent. But Aunt Hannah, most specifically, I wrote something and she ran out into the living room one Thanksgiving in the States. Nazarene, nee, Bill is a writer. And I feel like when she said that, God heard her. And from then on, I started to write. When I was in high school, Joanne Howard, my teacher, I had this poem called Pepper Soup, but it was in Liberian vernacular. So I was just like, she wanted me to enter the NAACP award AXO program. And I was like, no, I'm going to write another poem, not that poem. I talked to my mom. My mom said, oh, those people will not understand our thing. Don't do it. And Miss Howard went behind my back and entered it anyway.
Well,
And I won. Yeah, I won that. I
you've
got
been winning since.
and I've been winning ever since. So thank you, Joanne Howard. I have to mention you and Mrs. Urban, Mrs. Gershowitz, and Mrs. Baxter now.
Beautiful.
Thank you, all teachers.
Thank you so much. I mean, you've said something that is very true. Like the things that I remember about myself, the things that shaped like the perspective about myself are things that were said to me whilst I was growing up. And sometimes you're like, I was just a kid. Why is this so important to me? But it really, really keeps me going because I remember something an uncle said, or I remember something my sister said, or something my mom said, and like it keeps me going. So that is absolutely true. But you've had experience of traveling across like 5 African countries.
Yeah.
Yes. How has that shaped your perspective on how you see life? And then
I think-
US and African countries, right? 5 African countries.
Right.
How has that shaped your perspective on
I
how
think
you see
I
life?
think that it gives you an understanding that you can't go to places based upon your own expectations of your own worldview. You know, I I was joking with my friends earlier about time in Ghana. And if you're going to worry about people being on time, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So you have to be. It's more of a instead of looking at it like, oh, these people are always late. You say, well, Ghana's a very relaxed, lucky go easy kind of place. And if you put yourself in that mindset, now I'm not saying we shouldn't improve. You can't take it too seriously. I think that as long as there's communication and you manage your expectations about certain cultural things that you may not be used to, you'll be okay. I heard an African American lady speaking so negatively, and I'm like, well, why don't you just buy your ticket and go back to where you're coming from? It's that simple. If it's that difficult for you, Donald Trump is there waiting. It's there. It's that easy. Sorry for being political. But yeah, I mean, you have the choice to stay or to go. And that goes to every single place. Here in Ghana, it will be very hard that you will go to someone and say, I'm hungry, and they won't give you food.
Yeah.
It's not, but in America, you can go to someone and ask them for food and they'll tell you to get the heck out of their face. That's just the cultural things that you have to, and if you go to America and you don't want that, you come back to Ghana because you know that you won't get hungry because you can ask people for food. It's the same thing. Like if you're here and you don't like the fact that there's doomsaw or people are late.
Hey, you know
or,
about doomsaw.
Hey. So if you don't like all of that stuff and it's just so difficult for you to cook, there's the Kokoto. It's Kokota.
No.
How do you say the airport?
Kotoka.
Kotoka. In Liberia, there's Totota. That's how I'm getting it confused. Anyway, there's the airport right there. Get on a plane and go to where you're coming from. That's it.
Yeah, true. If you could have dinner with any writer, dead or alive, who would you choose?
Let's see. All right. That's so difficult. Okay, can I have a group of people?
Okay, you can
Let me
have
have
a
a
group of
group.
people.
I'm gonna have a dinner party.
Yes.
Okay, Sang, Chroma, Way Two More, Elma Shaw, Toni Morrison. These are okay. So the dead people are Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, James Baldwin, James Baldwin. Did I say Toni Morrison? I
Yeah.
did say Toni. Nikki Giovanni and Maya Angelou.
Okay, those are 8 people.
8 people.
That would be
Okay,
a
let me give 2 more.
wall.
Let me give 2 more. Then Zora Neale Hurston and who else?
You're looking for the 10th person.
The 10th person. I have to choose. Okay, myself, but I'm already there. So 11 people. So let me get one more person. Okay, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the former president of Liberia. She's a writer as well. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
That'll be a very big ball.
Yeah.
That's no longer a dinner party.
Yeah, no, it's a big dinner party. Yeah, so those are the people that I would.
Okay.
Oh, and Hawa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's now 12 people
Yeah,
on the table.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you're wrapping up.
Yeah.
You see, when you're having fun, time really flies.
Yeah,
This is like
time flies.
literally my last question for you.
Ask me.
Right? And I was going to ask you, what's that one book or song or movie that you've watched that has really, really, really impacted your life? It could be a song, a movie, or a book.
A song, a movie, or a book. A song, a movie, or a book. I would say Octavia Butler's Wild Seed is a book that really touched me. It's a science fiction book, but it's really nice to see a Black woman who wrote science fiction so well. So I'll give her that. For a song, Whitney Houston, The Greatest Love of All. And what was the third thing?
A movie.
For a movie, E.T.
E.T.
Yeah,
Is that like a scary movie?
No, it's about an extraterrestrial alien.
Really?
So yeah,
Oh,
E.T. phone home.
E.T. Cool.
So E.T.
Yes.
So those are the 3.
That's amazing. Thank you so much
Thank you for having me.
joining us. We had so much fun.
I had a great time too.
Conversing with you was so chill. I was like,
Yeah. Well,
I felt like there were no cameras here.
Yeah, but there they are.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
But before we go, right, in a country where therapy is not in our conversation, how do we deal with a lot of our mental issues?
How you
mental
deal
wellness
with your
issues?
mental issues is call me.
Yeah.
Okay. And look for me on Instagram at I am Bill Tubman and visit my website at iambilltubman.com. And I'll tell you how to get there.
Beautiful. What's the next project that you have coming up?
So we're working on the book, which is Proverbial Flowers. That comes out on April 22nd. We also have the Creative Indigo podcast that starts in June.
I saw that.
Yeah, and a transformative writing workshop that starts in August. And so if you visit my website, you'll see all of it.
That's very packed. That's a very packed. Wait, which one is dropping first? The book.
The book is
It's
first.
dropping in April.
April, right.
And then we have the podcast that is dropping
June.
in June. And we have the workshop that is dropping in
August 10th.
Yeah, that's a very packed. That's very packed from the month of April, right?
Yeah.
So you can visit Bill on www.
I am BillTubman.com.
Yeah,
I
and then
am BillTubman.com. That's
awesome.
TUBMAN. Don't worry, they're going to put it right at the bottom of the page. You'll find it.
Also, yes, absolutely. And you can find everything that you need to find out about the projects that are coming up
Yeah.
with Bill Tubman. So, what are your last words to our audience? What would you like to say to your friends and family and your fans and everybody watching us?
Well, everybody, I am just so happy to have been able to share with you. Your stories matter. Make sure you're telling them. Africa is not to come. Africa is now. We need to really focus on our youth. Youth, sit at the feet of your elders and know that your mental wellness and your purpose matters to the world. That's
Thank
all I
you
have to
so
say.
much. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, my name is Akwaaba, and I learned so much. I believe that you learned as well. Can't wait to see you on our next episode. Till then, bye and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful days ahead. Bye.